I'm Jim Hatfield and this is IGN News. According to inside sources, Metal Gear Solid creator Hideo Kojima is leaving Konami after the completion of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain.
Mr. Kojima had every intention of being with us tonight, but unfortunately he was informed by a lawyer representing Konami just recently that he would not be allowed to travel to tonight's awards ceremony to accept any awards.
Hello everyone. I'm back.
After saying goodbye to Konami and the Metal Gear series, Hideo Kojima's legendary return to the video game world as an independent developer, along with the reveal of Death Stranding, seemed like it happened in the blink of an eye. However, a lot happened behind the scenes before he reached his ultimate destination. To get a better understanding of how he felt during this journey and the decisions he made, it's important to look beyond his famous reputation and delve a little into Hideo Kojima's fascinating past. Born in 1963 in Setagaya, Tokyo, Hideo wouldn't have access to video games until he started going to college. As a young boy, he satisfied his active imagination through other forms of entertainment, such as reading books, listening to music, and watching movies. His parents, who were film fanatics, encouraged his interest in art, especially movies. Every night, they would sit Hideo down to watch a movie together, and he wasn't allowed to go to bed until the film had finished. When Hideo was 10, his parents started giving him pocket money to go to the cinema by himself, on the condition that he would discuss the movie's themes and direction with them afterward. Despite being surrounded by family every evening and having many friends at school, Hideo felt very lonely and isolated. His parents worked long hours, so he always carried the house key since no one was home after school. In Japan, kids like Hideo are known as kagiko, or latchkey kids. Going home to an empty house and having to take care of himself ingrained a deep-seated feeling of isolation that he still carries to this day. Whenever he travels and stays at a hotel, he turns on the TV as soon as he enters the room to cope with the feeling of loneliness. Being home alone so often sparked his creativity, leading him to think up stories and act them out with figurines he made himself. In high school, Hideo began making his own zombie-inspired short movies using a Super 8 film camera he borrowed from a friend. Sadly, it was around this time in his life that Hideo's father passed away. I was just 13 when he died. For a period of time after my father passed away, I felt alone. What helped me get through that period were movies and books. This was when I discovered the power contained in entertainment and stories. I decided that when I grew up, I wanted to work in a job that would allow me to create these kinds of stories. Hideo was determined to become either a film director or a novelist. Unfortunately, at that time, these creative careers were seen as significant risks in Japanese society and were therefore shunned. His uncle, who was an artist, continuously suffered financially, making Hideo's family very aware of the challenges associated with such careers. After his father's passing, financial concerns became unavoidable, adding to the mental burden his mother carried as a single parent. The young Hideo became very protective of her and didn't want to add any more stress to her life. After high school, he briefly considered becoming a pharmacist like his father, but ultimately decided to study economics at university, a safe choice that would please everyone, except himself. Before we move on, I'd like to talk about this video's sponsor, Boot.dev. Boot.dev is an online platform that has turned learning how to code into a fun and captivating RPG experience. They provide courses for the programming language Python and Go, so you can learn back-end web development from start to finish. The platform is designed to make sure you'll be writing a ton of code, as the people at Boot.dev believe the best way to learn to program is by getting your hands on the keyboard and completing projects. All the while, you'll be earning XP, levels, and achievements by completing quests. Not everyone has the means to pay for a membership, so all of their content is free to read and watch in guest mode. A paid membership unlocks the game and all the interactive components that go with it, the whole reason why boot.dev is so engaging and efficient at teaching you how to code. Furthermore, the boot.dev Discord community is very active and there to help if you ever get stuck on your coding challenges. Click the link in the description box and use my code ThatGuyGlen to get 25% off your first payment for boot.dev. That's 25% off your first month or your first year, depending on the subscription you choose. Boot.dev, learn backend web development the smart way. Now back to the video. During his studies, Hideo couldn't let go of his dream of making movies. He knew he couldn't just pick up a camera, film, and edit a successful blockbuster, especially not during the 80s, so he wrote novels instead, hoping they would win awards and give him the chance to direct a movie. However, that's when Hideo discovered the Famicom, better known as a Nintendo Entertainment System in the West. He immediately became obsessed with playing video games, and it became clear that this might be another route to creating film-like experiences. The future potential of this new medium was undeniable to Hideo, and that's what swayed him to pursue a career in the game industry over the movie industry. During his last year at university, he shared his plans to become a game developer. With the video game industry crash of 1983 fresh in everyone's mind, his friends and lecturers thought he was crazy and begged him to reconsider. However, there was one person who supported his decision. It was only my mother who told me that I could do whatever I wanted to in life. She was the only one. With his mother's blessing, Hideo set out to finally make his dream come true. He still harbored some embarrassment about looking for a job in the game industry, so when he was deciding which company to join, he had his eyes on Konami, not because of the type of games they were making, but because they were listed on the stock exchange. Not even Nintendo had that accolade at the time. Hideo figured that working for a company like that might help people around him view his game development job in a more positive light. In 1986, Konami hired him as a designer for the MSX home computer division, officially starting his journey in the game industry. It immediately felt like coming home. Many of his colleagues had joined the company for similar reasons. They either wanted to direct films, write comic books, or make music, but for various reasons hadn't been able to quote-unquote make it. During an interview with The Guardian, Hideo described them as dropouts, people who felt like games offered them another chance to express themselves. Moreover, they all believed in the future of the medium, which drove them to create the best possible work. After nearly 30 years of creating some of the most notable titles in the industry and raising the bar for video game storytelling, Hideo Kojima left Konami. I explored the likely reasons for his departure in a previous video, but regardless of what precisely happened, for the first time in 30 years, Hideo felt truly lost and disconnected from everything and everyone. On October 9th, 2015, Hideo Kojima stepped outside Konami's company building for the last time after a farewell party. Without any work ahead of him for the first time in a very long while, Hideo took this opportunity to reflect, although not for long. At 53 years old, early retirement could have been an option, but he quickly realized his drive and passion to create were stronger than ever. However, he didn't have an office, colleagues, or computers to work on. He thought he had lost everything. Then he remembered all the connections he had made throughout his 30 years in the industry and decided to try and reconnect with them. People like Jeff Keighley, Guillermo del Toro, Norman Reedus, and all the friends he made at Sony, for instance. Perhaps some of them were still interested in a collaboration. That being said, if he was going to continue making games, it had to be on his own terms. While working for Konami, Hideo was obligated to protect the brand and maximize profits, which made it very difficult to create something cutting-edge and unique. To have full creative control, Hideo set out to build his own independent studio. Although his family members were against this idea, he already had a vision for a big open-world game that he felt compelled to pursue. His longtime friend and art designer Yoji Shinkawa didn't have to think twice about joining Hideo on his journey. Before doing anything else, they created the company logo. Since they didn't have computers, Yoji drew the concept by hand on paper and finished it at an acquaintance's design studio. Now the real work could begin. First things first, money. While Hideo probably made quite a bit of money over the years developing games, setting up a game studio that could produce AAA titles of the highest quality far exceeded his budget. Getting a bank loan seemed like the obvious solution, but the banks in Japan were hesitant. Even when I went to the bank, I couldn't borrow money. They said, "We know you're renowned, but you don't have any actual results." This is the kind of country Japan is. Luckily, he eventually talked to a banker who was a huge fan of his work. The banker believed in Hideo's vision and granted him the loan. Next, Hideo started hiring staff while simultaneously looking for a big publisher to partner with. Normally, a studio would put together a pitch that includes a roadmap and other important data regarding their vision for the game, but Hideo didn't want to share any information whatsoever. Western publishers, despite his esteemed reputation, called him crazy. When he went to Sony, however, they didn't hesitate to bet on Hideo Kojima as a creator and didn't need to know what the game was. On December 16th, 2015, one day after Hideo's contract with Konami officially ended, Kojima Productions was officially registered, along with a public announcement of Sony's partnership with the new studio. At this point, Kojima Productions didn't have an office yet. It wasn't for a lack of trying though, as Hideo was constantly looking for the perfect place, only to be let down by landlords whenever they found out Hideo's company hadn't actually produced anything yet. For now, Hideo settled for a small room he was able to borrow from a friend and turned it into an office for himself and his 3 team members. After buying computers and other equipment, it was time to start development on Death Stranding. During all these preparations, he kept this independent endeavor a secret from his family, especially his mother. He didn't want her to worry and planned to tell her once his company became a little more successful. Unfortunately, she passed away during development. In an interview with Vulture, Hideo mentioned he regrets not telling her about Death Stranding. The ghostly apparitions that appear in the game now carry a deeper meaning for him. The ghosts in the game, maybe my parents are one of them, seeing me in this world. I wanted to have that kind of metaphor, that within you, you're connected to the people that passed away. Hideo decided it was best to use an existing engine, as building one from scratch could add months or even years to the game's development timeline. That's when he got in touch with Mark Cerny, the lead system architect at PlayStation, who suggested going on a worldwide tour to find an engine that suited all of Hideo's needs. In January 2016, after visiting studios like Sucker Punch, Bend Studio, Media Molecule and others, they eventually went to the Netherlands to check out their final stop, Guerrilla Games and their Decima engine. After talking to the team and checking out the engine, Herman Hulst, managing director of the studio at the time, presented Hideo with a small wooden box that contained the entire source code of the Decima engine. There was no formal agreement, no contract. Guerrilla Games just wanted to assist Kojima Productions in any way they could. It made Hideo emotional, and he decided right then and there that this was a team he wanted to collaborate with. Death Stranding's inception began more as a feeling than a concrete idea. I always feel lonely in society. There are so many people who play games feeling like that, like they don't belong in this society. They don't really feel comfortable. You're all alone playing the game, and you're trying to connect this fractured society by yourself. The world is beautiful, but you're small, just a tiny speck. You feel hopeless and helpless and powerless. You feel so lonely. That profound feeling of loneliness is directly tied to his previously mentioned childhood. When he left Konami, all those childhood memories came flooding back. For instance, it reminded him of when he discovered the movie Taxi Driver as a student, and how he related to the solitude, not the violence, that Travis Bickle experiences throughout the movie. It was a relief to see that there were others out there who felt lonely, even if they were fictional. Hideo wanted to relay that feeling to players. This inspired the indirect online component in Death Stranding, where players can see other people's footprints, hear echoes of other players, and leave behind useful tools. Aside from the theme of loneliness, the oceanic environmental designs and giant sea monsters were also inspired by Hideo's childhood. When he was only 2 years old, his father pushed him out on the ocean in a boat, a frightening experience he remembers to this day. Another source of inspiration from his childhood dates back to 1970, when Hideo and his parents went to the Osaka World Expo held in Japan. Many people from abroad came to Japan, and for the first time, Hideo saw people from different countries. The expo displayed cutting-edge technology, as well as symbols of each country's ancient culture, all under the slogan of progress and harmony for mankind. Hideo could clearly see the futuristic vision it communicated, a future in the 21st century where diverse cultures and customs are combined with cutting-edge technology that would connect the world and make humanity happy. When development on Death Stranding began at the end of 2015, Hideo had to face the fact that he wasn't living in the future he once envisioned as a boy. While technological advancements such as the internet certainly connected mankind more than ever before, Hideo also saw a lot of fragmentation and isolation. He saw a world that was becoming more divided despite the 24/7 connection we share thanks to the internet. He hoped that Stranding would offer a more positive way of connecting people all over the world using today's technology. That ultimately meant no way of competing against other players or any sort of co-op mode where you could take down enemies together. The core of the online component would be to form connections by helping other people you can't even see, so that you and the rest of the player base can achieve a common goal. This would eventually become known as a social strand system. When Hideo first told his team about this concept, it received a largely negative response. They said, "But no one does that. You have to be the strongest. You play because you want to stand out. You don't do something for others." Hideo had already expected such a reaction. A new concept is really difficult to explain at the start. The stealth game, no one really got it when I first presented it. Your first enemies are always your staff or the people working with you. The team's opinion became even more negative when they heard about Death Stranding's gameplay. Delivering packages and reconnecting an isolated and desolate America didn't sound exciting to them whatsoever. Sure, Hideo had a whole traversal system in mind that would make things more complex and interesting, but no one really understood his vision. It created a lot of tension in the beginning of development, because his colleagues kept asking, "Where are the guns? Where are the fights?" Hideo's reply would always be, "No, it's about something different. It's about just walking and experiencing this world." As Hideo's gameplay ideas became more concrete thanks to early prototypes, his colleagues, whether quickly or eventually, started to understand. When Hideo monitored playtests, he could see how much fun his colleagues were having just walking around in the game. With E3 2016 drawing closer, the studio wanted to have something ready to show off at Sony's press conference. In February 2016, Hideo sat down with Norman Reedus at a sushi restaurant in LA to talk about Death Stranding. After their last project together, Silent Hills, was cancelled by Konami, Hideo hoped that Reedus would portray the role of Sam, Death Stranding's protagonist. Although there wasn't even a script yet, Reedus agreed to play Sam nonetheless. It was partially thanks to Guillermo del Toro that he accepted the role, as Guillermo had told him in the past to just say yes to whatever Hideo would ask. Since he gave Reedus his first ever role in a movie, he trusts whatever del Toro tells him to do. From here, things happened at an incredible speed according to Hideo. They made scans of Reedus and did performance capture to create the game's first teaser, which was shown at E3 just 4 months later. Meanwhile, Hideo was still busy searching for the perfect place to set up Kojima Productions. His team was rapidly expanding, so he needed a big space. Ever since he started looking, Hideo had his eyes on a particular building. Unfortunately, only publicly traded companies were able to rent offices there, so they initially denied Hideo and his studio. However, one of the owners was a big Hideo Kojima fan, and when he found out that the famous game designer wanted to rent space in the building, the request was approved. There wasn't much time to celebrate though, since Death Stranding would be officially unveiled the following week. After the official announcement, the pressure was on. Yet over the next 3 years, Kojima Productions ran like a well-oiled machine. Hideo himself attributes this to 2 factors. First, he was involved in every single aspect of development, including the story, game design, art, sound, and so on. This forced him to make quick decisions. He never said, "I'll think about it." He followed his gut feeling and made decisions on the spot so that work could continue as quickly as possible. This is why Hideo doesn't like to outsource a lot of work, as communication and a decision-making process can be slowed down that way. Because of his love for movies, he even edited some of the game's trailers. The second reason Death Stranding was developed at a relatively fast pace is because of the size of the team. While the studio had only 4 members at the start, it expanded to about 80 people by the end of development. That may sound like a lot, but it's not that big compared to other teams that create AAA titles, which often have hundreds of people working on a single project. Having only 80 people on board streamlined communication within the company significantly and made Hideo's direct feedback even more effective. That being said, Hideo and his team still had plenty of arguments. One example is an argument they had about the like system in the game. Death Stranding allows players to give likes or thumbs up to objects placed by other players in the world. In most games, you can accumulate points or experience and spend them on items or character upgrades. However, Hideo didn't want there to be a reward system attached to the likes. His colleagues did not think it was a good idea, but Hideo held his ground, as he felt that otherwise, Death Stranding would just be another normal game. He wanted likes to simply be an act of unconditional love towards other players. The like system, as well as many of the themes in the game, are inspired by a Japanese short story written by Kobo Abe, titled The Rope. It states that the stick is the first tool mankind created to put distance between themselves and bad things, to protect themselves. The second tool mankind created is a rope, used to secure things that are important to you and create connections. Hideo really liked what the rope stands for and looked for ways to implement it in the game. This is why Sam wears cufflinks, why there are many references to umbilical cords, why strands come down from the sky, and even why the logo is inspired by it. Hideo compares giving other players a like to using the rope. It's meant to bring people closer together and spread positivity. He was so adamant about this concept that he didn't want to add a thumbs down button, since that would be like using the stick. Liking people's objects and structures is part of the previously mentioned social strand system. While the divisive nature of the internet was a big influence on that system, so was something that Hideo calls the letter theory. The theory essentially boils down to indirect communication. During an interview with Game Informer, Hideo gave the example of how, in the past, husbands would write letters to their wives during wartime. They had to choose their words carefully and really think about what they wanted to say. Furthermore, it would take months for the letter to arrive, and by the time the wife read it, the husband could already be dead. She had to imagine what her husband was thinking at the time he was writing the letter. In Hideo's opinion, communication back then was much more thoughtful and considerate. In Japan, they call this omoyari, which means caring for others. Nowadays, we can communicate in real time, lessening the need to really think about what we want to say and how we say it. By placing a ladder in Death Stranding, another player might eventually find it and think, did that person deliberately put it there? Did he just have to throw away the load? The team aimed to make people stop and think about all the other players on their journey in the game, as that's the whole point of the ladder theory. Additionally, Hideo hopes players will feel happy when they stumble upon conveniently placed bridges and other structures, prompting them to do the same for others, strengthening the omoyari feeling. Death Stranding represented a fresh, clean slate for Hideo's work moving forward, and he wanted to take full advantage of how games have advanced since he started creating them back in the 80s. He was especially interested in making Death Stranding as realistic as possible, not only in terms of graphics, but also certain gameplay mechanics. During an interview, Hideo gave the example of how, in Metal Gear, you were able to carry an unlimited number of items. Of course, that's not possible in real life. Therefore, Hideo wanted to add the element of weight into the game to help players more clearly understand the importance of their items. As a result, when you have to deliver something from point A to point B, you have to plan your journey and carefully select what tools to bring if you're planning on climbing mountains and crossing rivers. This way, the team aimed to create a realistic but still fun and challenging traversal system. That realism also extends to Sam, the main character. Unlike most other video game characters, Sam isn't super strong, can't fly, can't jump high, and isn't even a trained soldier like Solid Snake. Hideo compares Sam to a blue-collar worker who needs to watch his step or he'll literally fall to the ground. Early in development, they envisioned Sam wearing a more futuristic-looking suit, but toned it down when they settled on the blue-collar idea. Art director Yoji Shinkawa explained that when you go too far into the sci-fi direction, it kind of takes away from reality and players won't relate to the characters as much. To achieve a more believable and convincing story, Hideo decided to work with real actors, such as Norman Reedus, Mads Mikkelsen, and Lea Seydoux. While he admits it's not easy, as it involves a bigger budget, scheduling issues, and other problems, once he saw their expressive performances, he couldn't imagine going back to the unconvincing results of strictly animating things by hand. Fun fact, Keanu Reeves almost played the role of Clifford Unger, one of the game's villains. One of Hideo's close friends, Nicholas Refn, first introduced him to Mads Mikkelsen. Nicholas, who also gave his likeness to the character of Heartman in Death Stranding, has written and directed movies like Drive, Only God Forgives, and The Neon Demon, so he's pretty well connected in Hollywood. Hideo really liked Mikkelsen, so when he started writing the character of Clifford, it was with him in mind. Before Hideo offered the role of Clifford to Mikkelsen, however, he met up with Nicholas to ask for his opinion. Nicholas said that Mads Mikkelsen is a great actor, but thought that Keanu Reeves would be an even better fit. Hideo is actually close to following Nicholas's advice, but decided to trust his instincts instead and offered the role to Mikkelsen. Before we move on to the game's mixed critical reception, I'd like to quickly go over a few other interesting development facts. Certain elements, like Sam's BB pod and Hicks' black and gold design, took some inspiration from ancient Egyptian culture. The cufflinks were one of the first things Yoji drew as concept art. Die Hard Man was originally envisioned as a tough-looking character covered in scars. Abstract versions of the BTs were explored in early concepts, but after several iterations, concepts based on actual creatures felt scarier and more convincing. Some of the major difficulties in creating concepts for the cities were figuring out the scale and balancing how desolate they should feel. While all cities are inhabited, the people in them don't venture outside and are isolated, confined to their respective indoors. Hound Knot City was supposed to be a city wiped out by a void out. Its name disappeared from the game, however, and its ruins were left near the old shopping mall. In less than 4 years, Hideo Kojima built his own independent studio and had his first game ready to ship. During that period, numerous trailers showcased the story and gameplay, making gamers around the world very excited to experience Death Stranding, especially since it was the first time Hideo could create something without any restrictions, or shareholders breathing down his neck. Although he was happy with the way the game turned out, he was still worried about how Death Stranding would be received worldwide, just as he was when he released the first Metal Gear title. It's the same as when I first brought out a stealth game. If 100 people play it and 100 people say it's fun, it means the genre or the game already exists. But this is a new genre, same as stealth the first time. There will be people who don't get it. It will take time for the real evaluations to come in. Hideo understood the risk that people might not accept it, but for him it was worth it to push the boundaries of the medium and create something unique. On November 8, 2019, Death Stranding was released on PlayStation 4 to mixed reviews. While it received numerous perfect scores, other major gaming websites gave it plenty of 6s and 7s out of 10. Some reviewers even rated it a 5 out of 10 or lower. As a result, critiques ranged from "Death Stranding is dizzying, unshakable in its belief it is doing something worthwhile, and is one of the most important games of this decade," to "an irredeemable piece of garbage that should serve as a warning to publishers who give developers carte blanche to create quote-unquote art." Across the board, however, gamers and critics seem to agree that the social strand system was a very interesting and memorable addition to the game. Players were collectively helping each other by building bridges and roads, leaving behind useful items, and placing helpful signs in the semi-open world. This positive community forming around Death Stranding proved to Hideo that he had reached his intended goal, and that the game's core values of solidarity, empathy, and patience connected with people all around the world. Those core values perhaps became even more meaningful a few months after the game's release, when the world of Death Stranding became a reality during the COVID pandemic. Just like in the game, people had to isolate themselves and stay indoors. During that period, Hideo received many messages from people who felt the game saved them because it indirectly connected them to others. Death Stranding won multiple awards in 2019 and 2020, most of them for its audio design and technical achievement. Its PC release also won PC Game of the Year at the Golden Joystick Awards, and Hideo took home the Best Game Direction Award during the 2019 Game Awards show. Furthermore, as of May 2020, the PS4 version had sold enough copies to recoup the development costs and turn a profit. In July 2021, Kojima Productions announced that the game had sold 5 million copies across PS4 and PC PC. A director's cut of Death Stranding was released on PS5 in September 2021, adding additional content such as advanced combat mechanics, additional delivery support tools, a race circuit, and new story missions. In December 2023, it was announced that Death Stranding had reached over 16 million players across all available platforms, including free access as part of subscription services. Impressive numbers, especially considering it's a new IP and that Hideo's previous highest-selling games were Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, which both sold over 7 million copies each. All of Death Stranding's success was enough to justify a sequel titled Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, which is slated to be released in 2025. Hideo had actually written the sequel's story before the COVID pandemic started, but chose to rewrite it from scratch after experiencing what it's like to live in complete isolation. In December 2023, A24, the film production and distribution company, announced a partnership with Kojima Productions to adapt Death Stranding into a live-action feature film. Not much is known about the collaboration as of this video's release, except that it won't be a direct translation of the game and that anyone who loves cinema will be able to enjoy the movie. Apart from Death Stranding, Kojima Productions is keeping busy with the horror game OD, which is in development for Xbox. Hideo and horror director Jordan Peele both serve as writers, and the game will utilize Xbox Game Studios' cloud gaming technology to create a new form of media experience that will test your fear threshold. In early 2024, it was revealed during a PlayStation State of Play that the studio is also working on a next-generation espionage action game called Physint, signaling Hideo Kojima's return to the stealth genre. According to Hideo himself, the game will be a culmination of his entire career, which spans almost 4 decades. In June 2024, Noriaki Okumura, the producer of the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, mentioned during a livestream that he would love to work with Hideo again to create more Metal Gear games. That being said, it seems like Kojima Productions is going to steer clear of collaborating with existing IPs in the foreseeable future. Kojima Productions isn't publicly traded, so I don't have some goal of steadily growing the company. I just want to leave behind good work, and that's the stance I'm taking while making games, while also considering making other kinds of visual projects. We're going to maintain the stance of making our own IP and not working on IP licensed from others. In a 2023 documentary titled Hideo Kojima Connecting Worlds, Hideo spoke about how his age has started to really worry him. He turned 60 in 2023, and this got him wondering how many more games he'll be able to make. In the end, he tries not to worry too much, and instead reminds himself why he began making games in the first place. My ambitions expand as more things become possible. There's an effect of what's in my head expanding like this, and that's precisely why entertainment in this technology zone is so compulsive. It's limitless, and you never get bored of it. It's irresistible fun.